This has been a very powerful project. And as we come to a place where the work is not done, the work is still ever present. But as it's nearing the end, I'm thinking, wow, we did something. And we didn't know if we were going to be able to do anything. I just feel so proud, you know. I think I said it already, but this group is really special, and it will never happen again the way that it happened this year with this group of people. And I think I just feel really proud. And yeah, it was emotional though. I mean, and exciting. I mean, they kept saying to me, this feels so different. This feels so different. You know, we're performing with no one in the theater. I'm asking them to dance so big with no one watching except for the four of us. And they did it, you know? So I'm happy. You know, the curtain is closed and they took their final bows, and that was it. So watching them on stage was everything to me, because I didn't know if that would ever happen this year, and it was very emotional. I cried.
I feel complete. Like, my senior year has been complete. Like, even if I didn't get to do anything else, prom, graduation, or whatnot, I still wanted to dance at Fort Hays at least one more time, be on the stage with the lights at least one more time. That's all I was hoping for from the beginning of the school year.
And we can be so much more than who we are, so much more than who we are. We can, knee deep in while the world just falls apart. Have to rise above it all. And we can, and we can be so much more than who we are, so much more than who we are. We can, knee
I'm really happy I got to do something. I really thought, I'm like, there's no way that I could.
I'm mostly proud of myself for being able to like stick to something and like do good and like be around people who are also doing good.
Dance sometimes is just made to look effortless. Like, you're not meant to see the pain. You're meant to see the beauty of it. So that's something as dancers that we pride ourselves on, of making it look effortless as much as we can.
And we can be so much more than who we are, so much more than who we are. We can, knee deep in while the world just falls apart. At the rise above it all, and we can.
And this is the thing about dance, is it's you on the stage. Yes, you can play a character, but it's your body and your expressivity. It takes a heck of a lot of vulnerability. And that's a big ask for young people.
Even in the midst of a pandemic that we've never seen before, even in the midst of great tragedies that we have not seen before, the students at Fort Hays, the students in Columbus, the teachers, the staff, we all still rise up.
And we can be so much more than who we are, so much more than who we are. We can, knee deep in while the world just falls apart. At the rise above it all, and we can.
Dun, 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 dun. Tommy Emmanuel, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Maggie.
And Accomplice 2 is out now. You didn't think you could top the other Accomplice
I
album,
tried.
but it's pretty special as well. But we're
Thank
thrilled
you.
to have you here today. And
Thank you.
we've got a lot to talk about, where it all started, this latest album, the show tonight with Jorma Kalkinen,
Yeah, indeed.
who we adore as well.
Yeah.
The show's tonight at 8, and we'll have a pair of tickets to give away for the event tonight. Details at kappa.com. It's also listed on our Facebook events. Tommy, what are you going to start us off with?
I thought I might play one of the tracks from the new album, and this is a song that I wrote as a dedication to Merle Travis's son, Tom Bresh, who passed away last year. He was quite a cannonball. That guy. He was a comet flying through our lives, like Travis was, I guess. So I tried to write this tune, and it kind of with a typical Merle Travis flavor. But then when I got to the bridge, it visits Stevie Wonder or someone like that, you know. And that's because I'm from a different generation to Merle Travis. But on the album, my buddy Richard Smith plays all the harmony parts. So today I'll have to do his part as well. So here it is, Son of a Gun.
to our entire Columbus City Schools community. My name is Brajan Oates, and I'm a student at Columbus Downtown High School. Before we begin tonight's Board of Education business meeting, I invite you to check out these highlights and updates from across the district.
Welcome back, everyone. I sincerely hope that Wellness Week offered a rejuvenating break to all of our students and staff. As we embark on the weeks ahead, let's channel that refreshed energy into finishing the semester strong. Now let's take a look at some highlights from across the district. I am thrilled to start off this superintendent's report with exciting news from Alpine Elementary School, which emerged victorious in the October Attendance Challenge among Region 5 schools. Alpine achieved the most significant reduction in chronic absenteeism, and to celebrate, the Columbus crew hosted a pep rally to cheer our students on. Congratulations to these students at Alpine Elementary School. Earlier this month, in a collaborative effort, American Electric Power welcomed 50 11th and 12th graders from Columbus City Schools to one of its training facilities. This insightful visit took place during National Apprenticeship Week and offered students a unique opportunity to explore the diverse career pathways within the company, apply for their apprenticeship, and gain valuable insights into their future professional journeys. National Apprenticeship Week is a national celebration to highlight the success and value of registered apprenticeships for rebuilding the economy, advancing racial and gender equity, and supporting underserved communities. Oakland Park and Westgate students recently got the chance to enjoy an enriching visit from authors Robbie and Matthew during a special event tied to the National Council of Teachers in English conference right here in Columbus. The couple has been living and traveling the nation in a tiny home school bus, visiting Title I schools in all 50 states. As part of their inspiring journey, they generously distribute free books to both students and teachers. Students received a book written and illustrated by the couple during the visits. All aboard the Pathway Express, which arrives at its next stop at the Wexner Center for the Arts on Saturday, December 9th, starting at 10 a.m. Students and families will get the chance to enjoy free admission to the Wexner Center. While there, students and families will get the chance to enjoy art workshops, the art gallery, a short film screening, free books and giveaways, and enjoy a meet and greet with author Inosanto Nagara. Mark this date on your calendar because you won't want to miss it. These have been highlights from around the district for November 28th. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. I am calling our November 28th board meeting to order. Please call the roll.
President Adair,
Present.
Ms. Beckerly,
Excused.
Mr. Brown,
I'm here.
Mr. Cole, Dr. Pierce, Ms. Reyes,
Here.
Vice President Vera.
Here. Thank you. Will you all join me in the pledge by standing?
One nation, God, liberty, justice for all.
Board members, on our agenda this evening, we have 5 individuals here for public comment. We have 2 items on board matters. We are not expecting reports from our direct reports this evening. We have our consent agenda. We have no public comment at the end of the meeting, and we will have an executive session. Is there a motion to approve our agenda?
Motion to approve.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Seeing none, without objection, the agenda has been adopted. We are going to move right into our public comment. Speakers have 3 minutes to address the board. Our first speaker is Jose Bourbon. Topic, Online Academy 6 through 8. Action wanted. I want the Board of Education to keep the Columbus Online Academy open during the 2023-24 school year. Okay, we will move to the next speaker. We have President Anna Watson. Topic, cost of the conference attendance in San Diego, California in October. Action requested, provide the community with cost. President Watson.
Good evening, President Adair, members of the board, and Superintendent Chapman. Let me just say I was prepared to come here and share with you. I was so disappointed not to receive the information that we requested last month. I'm pleased to say that I did receive that information at 4:55 p.m., and I want to thank the Chief of Staff who made sure that the NAACP received that information. I need you all to be mindful. When the NAACP asks you for information, we would like to receive it in a timely manner. I think that's fair. We want you to learn to become transparent with this community. We want you to learn to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. I don't have a lot to say because I did receive the information. I will analyze the information, and hopefully I will not have to come back asking for the same information. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tasha Jones. The topic is family engagement. Board action, consider the family engagement department in a different way. Ms. Jones.
Good evening, President Adair, Superintendent Chapman, the entire board, and everyone in attendance. My name is Tasha Jones. I am a proud product of Columbus City Public Schools at the time, graduate of Mifflin High School. I have 4 grown children that went through the district and graduated. I currently have grandchildren in the district. I'm a family ambassador at West High School, and my ask is that the board considers looking at our department in a different way as it relates to showing us how much you appreciate us the way that you say that you appreciate us. We are part-time contractors with a pretty big job. Family and parent engagement is a necessary issue in the district as it is around the country. We have a lot of dedicated individuals who have to make a choice to stay in this position that they are passionate about, that they're good at, that they love, or go out and get a full-time job or something that can, support their families. We are, I believe, the only ones in the district that get paper checks. It takes a long time for us to get paid sometimes. And the work that we do is not measured by our paychecks, but it helps. The smiles on the faces of the families that we work with. I actually run the West High School Facebook page. So I'm engaging with the community, alumni, family members. I've been doing this for quite some time. I came back the year before last school year into the role, knowing that it was a part-time position, because that's where I'm passionate. I think that allowing this position to be a full-time position, or at least an employee position, where we can also do other work, because there's ambassadors that have had to leave this role to go get another job. And we're not allowed to be substitute teachers. We can't work, in other roles. But that would be beneficial to us and the schools and the families that we work with. It's because I'm so passionate about the job, it's really touching to me. I know some of you from coming around the community events that we also work, there's a lot that's asked of us, and we do it with a smile on our face, and we do it with a lot of passion, and we would just like the return of what we're asking for, and that's a bigger role. Like I said, rather be part-time employees, direct deposit, things like that, that are preventing those that are great at this job from being able to stay in the job. And
Thank you so much, Ms. Jones, and thank you for being a family ambassador with us. Your comments are taken, and we will consider what you've said. Our next speaker is Ashley Potts. Topic, potential closing of Columbus Online Academy. Board action requested. Consider not closing Columbus Online Academy. Ms. Potts?
So, I am the mother of Julian Negron, and he attends Columbus Online Academy. And I was up here to ask it not to be closed because Julian was in a brick and mortar for a couple years, and it did not work out in his favor. We had several incidents that just, it didn't work out. But since we've been to Columbus Online Academy, his grades have went higher and he's happier. I know that he's safe every single day, and the teachers are just amazing. The staff is amazing, and even though he's not physically with his classmates, he gets to see them every day, and they have special things that they do to get together and things like that. And the brick and mortar, it failed him several times. It failed him for kindergarten, preschool, first grade, second grade. And even though the pandemic happened and we all did not like it, it was a hidden blessing because I got to see him flourish now. He was discriminated against and not well received because he is a kinetic learner. And I learned that from his third grade teacher at COA, which was Miss Grimm. And she taught us, like, he learns different, and she accepted that. And then she told his fourth grade teacher, Miss Conforti, which took an interest in Julian as a human being. And then now he's in fifth grade, and he has an awesome teacher as well. And we're just proud of COA and how it does. And I know that not everyone wants to be virtual and things like that, but it does help different children. There's some children that have like terminal illnesses that go to COA, and they're not judged from other kids, and their attendance isn't changed because they're at the hospital getting their treatment and they're still on their Zoom meeting. So it's very emotional for me because before, my son was outcasted not only by the teachers, but the students start following along, and now he has a place of belonging, and we're just blessed to know all the staff and everything that they're doing. And I know it's not for, of course, every person, but it is for a lot of kids, and every single kid that I know that goes there, they do flourish, and every single teacher is a nice and kind and sweet person. And it's not just because we're all up in their face because we can see them on Zoom. You can truly tell that they want the best for our children, and we didn't get that for several years. So I'm just asking that you guys take that into consideration, and it is very important for children like Julian, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Potts, and thank you for advocating on behalf of your student and the other students. Our last speaker is Professor Vladimir Kogan. Topic, agenda item 4.2, the board goal targets. Board action requested, do not lower the bar for expectations in reading. Professor Kogan.
All right. Well, good evening, President Adair, Vice President Vera, board members, and Superintendent Chapman. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak on the proposed changes to the board goals. I have appreciated the board's embrace of student outcomes governance, but I'm here tonight to strongly object to the proposed changes to the board goals. Before diving into the problems with the arguments you will hear later, let me make clear to the community what is at stake. If you adopt the proposed resolution, you will reduce your own goals for Columbus third grade reading proficiency for the 2025-26 school year from an already disappointing 55% to an abysmally low 40.5%. In other words, you will cut the current target by nearly 1/3 and send the message that you think it's okay for nearly 60% of Columbus third graders not to be able to read at grade level. That is simply unacceptable, and certainly not the promises that you made to the community during the levy campaign. And the arguments you're about to hear to justify this change are just simply bad. First, you'll hear from Dr. Brown about the pandemic and its impacts. But remember, none of the students covered in the later years of your goals were even in kindergarten at the time the pandemic hit. So the transitory decreases in test scores caused by the pandemic simply do not apply to the cohorts of students that we're talking about tonight. Second, Dr. Brown will point to a few large districts and make the case that, that the gains they make are similar to what the proposal calls for. But these districts, which are going to be the green line and the graphs you show you, are starting out at a much higher baseline reading proficiency on average, 30 percentage points higher. They make smaller gains simply because they have less ground to cover than Columbus. And unlike Columbus, they did not receive $10,000 per student in ESSER funding for the express purpose of accelerating learning. Finally, Dr. Brown will point to the abysmal performance of other Ohio urban districts. But that is the wrong comparison. That other urban districts are not very good doesn't mean that you shouldn't be. And families in Columbus are not choosing between Dayton and Youngstown. They're choosing between CCS and other private and charter providers here in our city. And there are many, many high-performing local options, including KIPP, United Schools Network buildings, and many others, that make much bigger gains than even your current goals, which you're about to reduce, call for. So I only have 3 minutes. I've only covered the 3rd grade reading goal, but I think many of the same arguments apply at least as much to the 7th grade math goal and the graduation goal that you'll also talk about. 20 years ago, we heard a lot about the, quote, soft bigotry of low expectations. And I think if you adopt the resolution tonight as proposed, you will be engaging in exactly this kind of soft bigotry. Hardly the schools and education that Columbus students deserve. Thank you.
Professor Kogan. That ends our public comment. We are going to now move into board matters. We will have our presentation, our regional and school presentation here at Briggs High School in the community. So I'm going to turn over to Dr. Chapman to make introductions, and we're going to hear from our students.
Good evening, President Adair, Vice President Vera, board members, and community members. We are thrilled to be here tonight at Briggs High School for our board meeting. We're excited to share 2 presentations with you this evening. First, we'll highlight key points from Region 1. You'll hear insights from Area Superintendent, Mr. Scott Nelson, who will introduce Briggs High School Principal Pam Smith and some of our impressive superintendent student ambassadors who continue to lead the way. Now for our presentations. Area Superintendent Scott Nelson will provide an overview of the region, share some data and highlights from the region, and talk about regional achievement in relationship to our board goals. Next, Principal Pam Smith will discuss the school and touch on cultural shifts. Lastly, we'll hear from our superintendent student ambassadors as they share their experiences and briefly discuss their involvement in the Superintendent Student Ambassador Program. Tonight's ambassadors include Elan Bial, Adam Muhammad, Sophia Likens, Kelsey Barbie, Devin Sang, and Rose Sanabria Nieves. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Scott Nelson.
Sorry, I'm not Scott Nelson. All right. All right. Galap wanaksan, Godomi Adair, Godomi Calavira, iyo Detki Borke. Galap wanaksan, Mamulka Chapman, Treasurer Van Over, iyo Internal Auditor O'Connor. Gobolka Ko Aktis So Dawada. Magage Adam Mohammed Wait, Senior, Briggs High School Kadajira, Cohort 2024. May Kajere Aradega Hugamio, Team Kiss. Iyo May Kajere, Captain Bolonkis, Track Team Member. Iyo Book Asubi, o Marki Anambay, Ohio State University. Lama Kung iyo Lawatan iyo Lama Sanat Kiss, Young Writers Workshop Kiss. Iyo May Rawaso Dawayo Gabolka, Ko Mamulkis, Mr. Scott Nelson. Not in English. Good evening, President Adair, Vice President Vera, and members of the board. Good evening, Superintendent Chapman, Treasurer Vanover, and Internal Auditor O'Connor. On behalf of Region 1, welcome. I am Adam Mohammed, Cohort 2024, a senior at Briggs High School. I'm a member of the student-led restorative team, soccer team captain, track team member, and a published author in the book Bloom after attending the Ohio State University's 2022 Young Writers Workshop. And I'd like to welcome our Region 1 Area Superintendent, Mr. Scott Nelson.
it's all right with the board and with Dr. Chapman, I think I just want to hand my notes over to Adam. Thank you, Adam, for telling us about yourself, as well as your dual introduction in my Mayan and English. And I think, as everyone will see here, that Adam, as well as the rest of the Briggs students that are here today, the student ambassadors, and the couple of the reading buddies behind me there to my left, are very representative, not only of Briggs High School, but of the entire region. Before I formally get going, I wanted to call out Mr. Davis and the custodial staff here. Mr. Davis, who was in back, is the head custodian here. And every time I come in here, he's always doing something. He's working. The building looks great every day. And he has done an outstanding job getting ready for the board meeting tonight. And the depth of his work and his commitment is really something that we all should model. So thank you to him. I stand here today representing the deep commitment and profound caring of all Region 1 stakeholders for all of our students. We are Region 1. We are 18 schools, 2 high schools, 3 middle schools, 12 elementary schools, and a pre-K-8 building. Our Region 1 vision, mission, and core values. This is what anchors all of us, all the stakeholders, all the educational leaders, teachers, support staff in our work. All Region 1 administrators for our vision will eliminate the opportunity and achievement gaps for all students. Our mission statement, we exist to provide culturally responsive educational opportunities and choice for all students. And then our core values, 3 things that we try to hold on to every day. We believe that all students can be successful and base our decisions on student needs. Also, we work extremely hard on extending learning beyond the classroom to take risks and to grow together as learners and leaders. And lastly, we lead humbly with a purpose to engage a safe place of trust and respect for learning and growing for all students and staff. And that picture that you see up there is one of the things you'll see pictures in all of the slides. One of the things we've really focused on for all of our kids, the experiences and exposures and those opportunities. And this is one with our middle school career exposure with Cameron Mitchell. Region 1, we are approximately just under 7,300 students, with 17% of our students receiving special education services, 19% of our students receiving ELL services as well. And you'll see here on the bottom right, our attendance, student attendance home address is 71%, which is a little higher than the district average, which is typical and somewhat traditional of the West Side. This slide here really illustrates the diversity within Region 1. We recognize this diversity and embrace it as culturally responsive leaders and celebrate this in each of our schools. As you will see between our Black students and white students, as well as our growing Hispanic population, you can go through our buildings and you will see quite a diversity there as well, along with the other groups. And this is something really that is not only special about the region, but is a hallmark for us that we work very hard at connecting with all of our groups. Region 1 highlights from the state report card. One school overall, or one school with overall ratings of 4 stars. We have 5 schools with an overall rating of 3.5 stars. You'll see under progress there are 3 schools with 5 stars and then 5 schools with 4 stars. Under gap closing, we have 4 schools with 4 or more stars. And of note, I would like to point out that we have had 12 of 18 schools had an improvement on their performance index. A continued Region 1 highlight is our focus, a collective focus for all of our buildings and staff members, from our family ambassadors, our attendance liaisons, our administrators and teachers, and our community members. You can see there from end of year 2022 to end of year 2023, a nice drop from 72% to 63%. And currently, I'm proud to say, because of the collective efforts of the Region 1, we are now at 50% as of November 4th. We are very proud of that, but know that we still have a lot of work because we want to get every one of our kids back in our classrooms because that's where they need to be. Okay, panorama. So we've been focusing a lot on climate and culture in the region, and you will see from the beginning of the year 2022 to the beginning of the year 2023, in every category under school climate, you will see an increase. And that is something that we learned in our district-led panorama professional development. Even a couple percentage points is significant growth. And this is a collective effort, again, from everybody, from our teachers, support staff, administrators, and some of our teachers on special assignments that we are working to do this because we understand the importance of a positive school culture as it comes to student learning. Okay, Region 1 priorities. So one of our priorities here, the first one, focuses on effective instructional leadership. And we really focus on in the region the through line from district and region initiatives to our principals, to the through line then to our teachers, and then ultimately to benefit our students. And what you see here is a picture of one of our end of the year retreats last year, but for our principals, we provide ongoing professional development, differentiated professional development for new leaders, as well as a focus on our equity-centered leadership that we're working on. It's a learning journey for us, and we are proud that in Region 1 in December, we will be hosting Dr. Anthony Muhammad, and he will be there for everybody. So all the regions will be partaking in that as well. And lastly, what I want you to know is, in terms of this priority, we have each building leader informally is getting into each classroom at least 3 times a day, 15 times a week, to have an informal learning walk. And it's a two-way street with this dialogue between teachers and principals to spark that conversation about instruction. Because that's, we know, all of us know here, that's where it's going to happen, where we're going to enhance that and have a dialogue about this is working or this isn't working. And this is where this is happening in part of our professional development. Our next priority focuses on rigorous Tier 1 instruction. And what you see here is, as an example, October 20th, we had 3 of our elementary schools pull together, West Mound, West Broad, and Binns Elementary School. And it, as you can see, they're dressed up there, superheroes, saving the day, so to speak. The feedback from this meeting, this day together, was impressive and very meaningful because teachers, it aligned to not only region goals, but to district goals as well. And teachers were able to choose what they were doing and to take practical things they learned that day to apply them. And you'll see that, don't have enough time, but there's about a minute-long video there with the, if you click on the title, and you'll get to see some teacher feedback, which is it's been very nice. Part of our priority here also is when we talk about Tier 1 instruction, revamping master schedules to embed inclusion in an authentic manner, embedding win time, which is a time for intervention for all of our students, like the building, that's the only thing they're doing during that time. Also, we build in, this is a great example, as well as the other things that happened in the region that day. We're working on building a culture of learning, a professional learning culture across the region. I also want to mention as another example, a teacher-led initiative out of one of our middle schools that spread to all of our secondary schools is the Building Thinking Classrooms. And to get down to it and to get really specific, it focuses on student discourse. And to see how this took off from one middle school and spread is really quite impressive. And to see these kids getting up and discussing not only just how to solve it, but the math concepts behind it is very, very meaningful. And then lastly, our work around MTSS, Tier 1 instruction. If we think about it, if we figure out Tier 1 instruction, Tier 2 and Tier 3 are going to fall in line. And our work with Solutions Tree, where they are supporting and building the capacity of our BLTs and TBTs at every single one of our buildings, has been very helpful in terms of us systematizing that and making it consistent as we're looking at the work, the student work. And our last priority here focuses on the experiences and exposures that I talked about and opportunities for all K-12 students. Obviously, we want to strengthen that connection. When we talk about matriculation and graduation, we're just not talking about high school. We know it's a pre-K-12 goal, and that's something we've been emphasizing. And we know that the critical parts are from 5 to 6 and 8 to 9. In doing that, we have focused on many partnerships. We have a STEM partnership with the PASS Foundation. You'll see in the upper left-hand corner there the Lincoln Theater Community Partner Showcase, where not only Briggs, but some of our elementary schools were there with their families and community members to showcase their talents. Some of the folks right back behind me were in that, which was pretty exciting. We also have, we are focusing and working with Success by Third Grade in a few of our elementary schools as well. The two other things I want to mention to you, so you'll see the K-12 Scholar Walk. We did that last year. Both high schools went to every single elementary and middle school, and I am telling you that the look on the elementary school faces and the high school kids' faces was priceless. And to see siblings recognizing each other, or just younger kids who knew older kids, or to see teachers who saw their graduates, the younger ones, and that effort by our buildings and our region and our staff, it was worth everything. We want our kids to know that this is what they have to look forward to. And this is one of our efforts. The second one I want to mention to you is this 5th grade Ohio Dominican University program. And that was put together by a collective effort again. And every single 5th grade student last year and this year gets to go to Ohio Dominican University. And it's just not a tour where they get to kind of see the cafeteria and they get to see this, but they get to talk to professors and students, and they kind of get a kick out of it, like they get to see the dorm room and all those other things. But this is a science experiment they get to see. And the nice thing about that is the feedback that we've received from kids is, one, they didn't even know they had this option or opportunity to go to college. Now they want to go. And if that helps them just a little bit more, try a little harder, ask for help, or just know that, hey, I have a future here. Really cool story. Here at Ohio Dominican University, as well as we have a lot of high school, elementary school reading buddies, those kinds of programs. But we had a student who was on this as a chaperone from one of the high schools, going to school but not knowing where to go really. They're on the trip. Was talking to the graduation coach and said, well, I'm gonna introduce you to somebody. Introduces them to the folks at Ohio Dominican University. This student now has not only been offered, but has accepted and received the highest academic scholarship that they have. So those are the things that really motivate all of us when we talk about matriculation and graduation. And that is it. I would like to now thank you for your time, and I'd like to introduce Briggs High School Principal Pam Smith.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Nelson, for that introduction. Welcome, Board President Adair, Vice President Vera, and members of the board. Good evening, Dr. Chapman, Treasurer Van Over, and Internal Auditor O'Connor. Welcome to Briggs High School. And on behalf of Region 1 and the entire district, we welcome you to our home this evening and are honored to host you. This evening, you have the opportunity to hear some of the amazing student leaders that are at Briggs High School to share their portrait of a graduate experiences at Briggs High School. The students define the district's North Star, and these students solidify the mission that we are fulfilling at Briggs High School, our vision and our mission. And I also want to make sure that we introduce the members of the administrative team because it is a team supportive effort. To my right, I have Dr. Higgins, Sarah Patterson, and John Kuiper as the assistant principals at Briggs High School. So I'm welcoming them as well. Our school mission, as I said, the students to my left embody these, is to empower our students to reach their full potential and goals. And our vision, we're cultivating learners and leaders. Learners and leaders. Our core values that are present as you look around the room, we're brewing strong. And that strong stands for we're supportive, we're trustworthy, we're respectful, we're open-minded, we never give up, and we are growth-minded. And every day, our staff and our students, we remind them of this message. We put this message into all of our teaching and our thinking so that we can continue to cultivate those leaders. Before I introduce you to the students, who I know you want to hear, I want to give you a little bit of context into what they're going to be sharing their experiences that they're learning outside of the classroom. So the first one is we had our Power of One student leader group, and that was something that we had started 3 years ago. We're in our third year coming out of the pandemic where our students we saw a need for them to start to be able to communicate again with another and demonstrate their leader skills because we were spending a lot of time on others that weren't things that weren't cultivating that. So we need to stop. In collaboration with the former principal, we said, let's get this group together and give them the experiences. And over the last 2 years working with Jasper Person with Taylor Fit, we've been able to provide our student leaders experiences outside of the Columbus community that refine their leadership skills, also give them exposure to resources and opportunities today that will help them in their future for tomorrow, gain access, and understand how policies shape leaders and how leaders shape policy. They were able to go to and hear from Lead the Way, which is a business development resource. We went to lower.com, had the box office in Crew Stadium, Adelphi Bank, the first bank in Ohio recently that is Black-owned, met the owners, walked through the bank before it got open. Columbus City Council session, small business, the Edge Innovation Hub and met, yes, Tom Grody. We made pizza with Tom Grody because our kids are that great. We met with the Hilltop Area Commissioner, Malik Moore, Columbus Fashion Alliance, the Foundry, Lincoln Theater, and there's more, because we like to be busy and give our students the opportunity. We've had the Columbus Police Cadet Program speak to our students. They went to the Columbus Public Health Department, OSU Kerwin Institute, the Michael B. Coleman Government Building, and the Center for Public Education. Those are just the Power of One student leaders experiences over 2 years, so we're looking to expand that. We also have our Reading Buddies program that we have a lot of our elementary feeder pattern. You're going to hear Devin, he's going to talk just briefly about his experience in that. But that started 11 years ago with Miss Jarwara as the internship coordinator and actually myself out of a scheduling kind of mistake. And then we reached out to Lindbergh Elementary and said, how can we help you? And so then collaboration with our their third grade students. Our students do one-on-one tutoring with them, with the Mansell family who lead a faith-based 7 baskets. So you saw them with their maroon shirts on that had 7 baskets. And so we're really proud to have that sustained relationship and collaboration. There's some context why our students are portrait graduate ready, and I'm going to turn this over. It may be Ilhan. There we go.
Hello everyone, I'm Ilham Bilal. I'm an English AP student in the Fort Hayes Health Science program. Today, reflecting on our visit to Columbus Public Health, I learned more about mental health services and career options I might choose. Mental health has been a powerful impact on our schools and our Columbus community. Sorry, I'm shy. One more thing, guys. Now welcome Devin Singh.
I hit this? Okay. That's me. Hey guys, my name is Devin Singh, and before I get into this, I would like to thank Miss D for involving me in so many things, and Miss Peters for allowing me into so many different programs. And without further ado, my name is Devin Singh. I'm a student who is a part of many things, but I like doing a lot of things, too much things, all right? So I'm gonna get into them, those things, okay? I'm sorry. I'm a student that's in marching band and the jazz band. I do the COSI platform program. I do reading buddies. They're all back there. Thank you guys. I do the Kitchen of Life program and the community service kids. We are rebranding that to the Care Bears. So I'm gonna read my quote. As a West Sider my whole life, I've always tended to stay close to home. The student power wants student leaders, and my involvement at Briggs has shown me parts of Columbus that have inspired me to be a future leader. Because of this, I have a growth mindset, and I can see myself being successful at OSU. Who knows what I might achieve? And after that, the world is mine. All right. Is it?
Just click.
Okay. Do you want me to?
No.
Okay.
So we have these opportunities for our students outside of the classroom, but a lot of the core work, most of the core work happens within the classroom. And our focus is on that quality one-tier instruction, and with an emphasis on relationships, collaboration, and clarity. So one of the initiatives this year, and that we've changed some of the structure, is looking and deeply into our teacher-based teams and modeling under the professional learning communities and the work with solution trees. And we've always had those 4 critical questions, but just the systematic way in which we're going about collaboration in our teams this year, where it's what do we want our students to know, how do we know we learned it, really digging deep down into that essential standard. What's that one or two critical standards within the curriculum that is going to help them master the curriculum at their current grade level, in other classes, in their current next content level class? And then what do we do when we don't learn it? We can't just move on, because if it's that essential, then we must figure out what tier 2 interventions for those students is going to be necessary for them. And we're going to keep, that's going to, the different processes, we're going to keep reteaching those essential standards and collaborating deeply and intensively during that common planning time with a partner that is the same content area. So this has been an extremely deep, realigned focus this year. And I've already seen the results where for the first time, the percentage of students that pass math Q1 surpass those that pass other content areas, which for those of you that may not know the impact of Algebra 1 and passing math, it is the gatekeeper to their graduation. With our Columbus City School policy and lot of other education systems, if you're not successful and get your 4 credits in math starting with that freshman year, the chances of you graduating have dramatically decreased, and you can no longer become a 10th or an 11th grade until you hit that. So I know that's going to help us increase that graduation rate. So when I saw that data this year, I was extremely excited. With that, our teacher-based teams, we not only this work with our students, it's not just our teachers that is collaborative in teams, it's our counselors, it's our social workers. And so we're really proud of our counseling team that for the 2nd year in a row, they have decided to put their work using student data, surveys, their matriculation data, course content data, post-secondary options to drive programming. So really diving into that data, and so they applied for the OSCAR, which is the Ohio School Counseling Association Accountability Report, and so they have been recipients of that for 2 years in a row. And the benefit is obviously for our students, because they will receive the programming that they need for their futures. A few snapshots of success in addition to that brief one is looking at, Okay, my slide just got a little there, but that's okay. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Rose Sanabria, who's going to talk about her experience in the student-led restorative practice, in which we were a pilot school and going into our second year. So Rose, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Rose Sanabria Nieves, class of 2025. I am a part of the OSU Young Scholars Program as well as student-led restorative practices. I'm also a varsity volleyball captain and a part of Fort Hays Health Science Program. Prior to attending the Columbus Public Health with the Power of One student leaders, I have heard that drugs was a big problem in Columbus. However, I did not understand how much of an impact drug abuse had on families and the entire community. It is huge. Since my training last year for student-led restorative practices, my team and I have been trying to implement community and restorative circles inside and outside of classrooms. Restorative practices are important because it helps to resolve problems without violence.
This is just a picture. Go ahead and explain that.
This is one of our community circles. It's just to build relationships and build relationships in the environment because, we're in class all day with each other, so it's nice to know who we're in class with and just feel comfortable around each other. Unfortunately, our superintendent, student ambassador Sophia Lincoln's class of 2026 wasn't able to make it here, but I would still like to share her experiences. She was a part of the marching band, also a Power of One student leaders, CCP Columbus State English, and creative writing. She quotes, "The student ambassador experience has given me the opportunity to meet people I would have never known. So far, I'm learning leadership skills, and I'm looking forward to the next leadership opportunities."
Thank you, Rose. And some of our highlights that we have from between last year and this year, some of the upward trends. We saw a 6% increase in the spring Ohio State test in Algebra 1. And we had between 22 and 23 school year increase the number of students receiving and attending Columbus State for the Columbus Promise from 35 students to 49 students. The other increase, and it may seem like it's not a large gap, but 6 to 8 students that are being trained in student-led restorative practices. It is an intense 3-day training. So we had a cohort of like 15, but you have to be there at the start and for 3 intense days. So we are proud that we were able to increase that number. So we have 14 that are trained in the building. And then so far this year, the total last year, we had 14 staff trained in the student-led 3-day training, but we still have one more scheduled to attend, so I know we're going to surpass that and have more of our staff trained in the student-led restorative practice. But all of our counselors are going to be participating in they have participated in the restorative practices training for the Train the Trainer model. We're excited always when our students are able to have classes at a traditional school and expanding our career tech program, specifically in the construction area. We are so proud to always say that we're one of the first traditional high schools to offer this to our students. And what really kind of started is let's have this interest because we know it can be tied to a credentialing as an alternative graduation pathway. But so far, the number of students that want that and as a career, we had 36 students enrolled in the construction pathway last year, and this year we have 90. In addition, we have increased the number of our students that are in the CTE business pathway with the addition of 2 more classes in strategic entrepreneurship and digital marketing. So hopefully next year or whatever presentation that group is going to be able to do all this work for us, because that's what we want to do. We want to be able to provide the opportunity for our students to have the resources in high school now so that they can, if they choose to, go out, become employed, and we want to be the center hub for the companies that are coming into the Columbus area, as we know that we are in the top 5 of the, I believe it's 5, it could be wrong in that statistics, of growing industries for technology. Our number of increase in Columbus State, we are also very pleased that we are able to offer in-house Columbus State College Credit Plus classes. Our teachers for the English 1100 is the adjunct professor there, and we increased that number from it was 9 students to 16 students, and in the creative writing portion, which is the second half, we've been able to increase by changing it from the English composition 2367 course number to creative writing. We have been able to increase that number to 14 students from 2. So we are very proud too that we're also able to offer in-house Columbus Credit Plus biology and environmental science. So the first half of the year, the number of students we've increased from those two, from just starting that last year, we have been able to increase that from 8 last year to 14 this year. So we are growing the number of students that are participating in those courses. Also, there's some trends you want to decrease, and we're doing small decreases. You know, we're going to be growth-minded. We're going to step by step. We're going to chip away. We're going to keep going. But we were able, according to our state report card, decrease our chronic absenteeism by 4.7%, and based on our information in our Infinite Campus, decrease the number of days out of school suspension by 6.7%. Experiences, as we've shared, is not just for a select group of students. Our teachers are giving those experiences to a multitude of students, all students in those opportunities, equitable opportunities. So this year, our 9th and our 11th grade, our freshman and our junior English teachers collaborated together, and they took their classes to hear author John Green at the Columbus Public Library, and John Green said to the group he hasn't heard teenagers ask such thoughtful and insightful questions, and he had been getting away from young adult books because he was starting to get afraid of teenagers and going to adult, and he said his mind may have been changed after our visit. So our students not only impact at Briggs, they impact the community. And Kelsey is going to close us off with another successful experience that she's had at Briggs High School.
All right. Good evening. My name is Kelsey Barbie. I am the class of 2024. I am part of the Briggs Power of One Student Leaders and Show Choir, a student ambassador, and as well as our senior council. From my experience at the Crew Stadium, I learned how many people are involved behind the scenes with marketing, food, field preparation, technology, as well as maintenance to put on a soccer game. So, as well as being a student leader, I am a member of our show choir. Earlier this year, we had the opportunity to sing at the Southern Theater for an anti-racism and education event sponsored by the YWCA, featuring author Ibrahim Kendi X. As I listened to the panelists share their experiences and studies around race, I learned a lot of interesting facts about the history of the Black Lives Matter movement and the diverse group of people committed to making anti-racism a reality. It was fun for me to be able to see a whole community come together to share and talk about their experiences, struggles, and how and why they decided to become part of a movement. We were chosen as one of the choirs to sing since we are one of the most diverse schools. Prior to the event, we listened to experts from the book Stamped and had discussions with our music teacher and guidance counselor.
Now, we couldn't bring the entire choir, so we have a link to close us off with the performance. Do I press play?
Think about what you're trying to do to me, yeah, think. Let your mind go, let yourself be free. Let's go back, let's go back, let's go way on back when I didn't even know you, could have been too much more than 10. I ain't no psychiatrist, ain't no doctor with degrees. It don't take too much like you to see what you do to me, yeah, think. Think about what you're trying to do to me, yeah, think.
And our last slide, we want to have this closing we are brewing strong. We're going to have our Scholar Walk with our class of 2024, 2025, 2026. So we are brewing strong, and they're a little shy now, but thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, students and staff and everyone that did these presentations. It's always so amazing to come into the community and see all that you are doing. We are incredibly proud of the work of our students and all that you do every day to be the best of yourselves and, you know, the best of what we have to offer here at Columbus City Schools. You know, I think that you are all brewing strong, and you know, it's an incredible message. And the way that this region works together, Regional Superintendent Nelson seems to be, you know, a big family, and where the schools are supporting one another and sharing best practices. And that idea around growth mindset is in our students as well as in this whole community on the West Side. So thank you, West Side. Thank you, Briggs. And I hope the basketball team is winning. Someone needs to tell us the score. They are over there in the gym playing right now. But thank you so much for representing your school, your region, and your community. Go ahead, Dr. Pierce.
Thank you so much. So I have a bit of a question and a point of order, I guess. We have a number of students who are in the back that had an opportunity or that were supposed to kind of introduce themselves. So if those students could come up to the front and introduce themselves, share what school they're from. We had a great presentation from our superintendent's ambassadors, but we also have another great group of students here that we want to give the opportunity to, again, introduce themselves and kind of highlight what they're doing at their school. Don't be shy, come on.
These are the reading buddies that work with 7 baskets that were alluded to by our principal. Come on up, students.
So again, we want to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves, to share a little bit about the program that they work with. Thank you all for coming this evening. We appreciate you. The floor is yours.
Hi, my name's Glenn Simley with 2 N's, by the way. Always got to write that down. See, I love this school. Been here for 3 years. I'm graduating next year. And like I say, Reading Buddies is really fun.
There you go. I love it.
Good evening. My name is Jade Perone. I am in the Reading Buddies program. It is very interesting to see the kids learning from us while we are still in high school, and it's a really good experience that not a lot of people get. Thank you.
My name is Zachary Young. I am in Reading Buddies too. I go here. I'm class of 2026. Something I find very interesting about Reading Buddies is how it reminds me of when I was their age and how our generations changed.
Good evening. I'm Batisha Tamang, and I'm class of 2026, and I go to Briggs. What I really love about Reading Buddies is that I get to see the future generation of leaders of 5th and 3rd graders and see how we as high schoolers can help our future generation and see what we can accomplish. And I really love the Reading Buddies group because it helps me understand and cooperate with other people who I don't know, and that's what I really love. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gloria Martinez, and I go to Briggs High School. I'm also in the Reading Buddies program. Something that I enjoy from it is being with my kids. my 5th and 3rd grader. And I also like helping them teach, or, sorry, helping them learn more on things that they struggle with. And I like spending time with my friends as well as we go our way to the school. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Destiny Crump. What I love about Reading Buddies is that we get to spend time with our younger generation, also see how they learn nowadays, because it's different from what we used to learn. I really enjoy it. It's really fun. Helping them out a lot, teaching them things that we used to not know also. So that's it.
I know that was impromptu and kind of on the spot, but student voice is so important. We see you, we hear you, we appreciate you, we love you. Continue to be excellent scholars. And I know it's Bruin strong, but we'll say Region 1 strong because it's throughout the region. So thank you all.
All right, we're going to move into our next agenda item, which is item 4.2. We have a resolution to adopt Columbus City School Board goals and amended board goal targets. First, we will have the resolution, and then we will have the presentation, and then we will vote.
I have the resolution to adopt Columbus City Schools Board goals and amended board goal targets. Whereas the Columbus Board of Education, the board remains committed to its focus on student outcomes, and whereas the board recognizes the need to adapt its goals and amend its goals targets, and whereas the superintendent conducted an analysis of student outcomes and brought a summary of the highest leverage areas of student performance to the board, now therefore be it resolved that the board adopts the Columbus City Schools Board goals and amended board goal targets as contained in Exhibit A.
Thank you. That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. For our discussion, we will first have a presentation by the superintendent's office, and then we will discuss, and then we will vote. I'll turn it over to you, Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. Good evening again, and thank you in support of the resolution. We would like to present our recommendations to the board. Again, tonight we would like to revisit our board goals with updated data and a renewed emphasis on improving student outcomes. Dr. Brown will outline the district's recommendations for the established targets, goal frameworks, and methodology. As we review each goal, we will examine why each is so vital to prioritizing growth and achievement. These actions will help to realign our goals to our North Star, which are our hopes and dreams and aspirations we hold for each student in CCS. Columbus City Schools is focused on improving student outcomes. As a board, the board adopts goals which describe the benchmarks to be achieved to accomplish the community's vision for what students should know and be able to do. Effective goals start with describing the current level of student performance and the desired level of student performance in 5 years. We have conducted an analysis of current student outcomes and are bringing to you tonight a summary of the highest leverage areas of student performance. Our proposed targets are grounded in continuous improvement with clear measures of what we are trying to accomplish. The board's goals should be grounded in the community's vision for student outcomes, not adult inputs. They should start with student performance, the current reality for students, and identify the groups of students for measurement. These goals must be attainable, but also challenge the organization and require changes in adult behavior. The goals should also be SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, results-focused, and time-bound. I ask that we all keep in mind how these goals are framed utilizing SMART goals, which Dr. Brown will elaborate on further. And now I will hand it over to Dr. Russ Brown.
Good evening, President Adair, Vice President Vera, members of the board, and the larger community. Pleased to join you this evening. Again, we know that we need to revisit the targets for the board goals, and we'll give some reasoning today for why that needs to happen. I'm going to talk about how the targets were created, the baselines that were used to do that work, and what comparisons were made to establish and support those baselines. We'll talk about the new reading targets. We'll talk about a new math goal and why we need a math goal, and the targets for that math goal, and then finally the graduation targets as well. Before we go into that, just again, a reiteration of who we are as a system in terms of our students and who we serve. We are the largest system in the state of Ohio. We have a wonderfully diverse population. We saw some of that student population. We saw some of that this evening. We saw some of the wonderful things that our students can do. I'm so impressed with the students that are providing tutorial services to their younger colleagues in the system. Such a wonderful way for them to reinforce their own learning as well as to help develop the learning of others. And I think some of that work is rooted in that ongoing work around restorative practices that has been in this building for a while, and that commitment to relationship that we see. Our students are whole people, and they come with a lot of needs. Our student population is very different than many student populations around the state. We have a much higher poverty rate than many systems around the state, and poverty is an indication of need. We also have roughly 1 in 5 of our students who have exceptional needs and need to receive services for that. That takes additional resources, additional time, additional effort to meet. Also, about 1 in 5 of our students speak a language other than English. We know from the research that it takes 5 to 7 years to acquire academic language and to be able to perform academically in English. That takes additional time and resources. Those students represent 120 different countries and 110 different languages. There's no other system in the state that faces that sort of diversity in terms of languages that need to be addressed and met on the behalf of their students. That being said, as we were setting goals and thinking about goals, we did not limit ourselves to looking at systems that just look like us. We wanted to look at systems across the state, and I'll come back to that in a moment. So while we have made substantial impacts in student achievement following the pandemic, there's much work yet to be done. The impact of the pandemic is ongoing. It isn't a transitory thing by any means. We see, in fact, that across the country using the NAEP data, there have been profound impacts on reading and mathematics, and the impacts on mathematics have been much longer lasting. The recovery on mathematics has not been as robust as the recovery in reading. We see that, we also know from the NAEP data and other data sources, this was evident in iReady, it was also evident in NWA, that the losses were disproportionately born in systems like ours, where students have multiple needs and where systems have to work to meet those needs over time. So those losses were born disproportionately by systems like us. In Ohio, just for context, in every subject, in every tested grade level, the state has failed to come back to pre-pandemic levels of performance. Again, it's not a transitory impact. And if we listen to our teachers and we listen to our principals, the students that are coming into kindergarten have greater needs than they used to. That the impact of the pandemic impacted the whole child, it impacted our whole family, it impacted our entire community. It is not limited to just academics in its impact. And obviously the disruption in the data or quantitative data is obvious, and we've seen that, and it's ongoing. Finally, other systems that have embraced the student outcomes focused governance model have already adapted their targets. They've recognized that the pandemic, frankly, the bottom dropped out on proficiency, and they had to reestablish their targets so that the trajectories were realistic. While I would love to be talking about goals that involve 20% of change in 3 years, that's not real. No one's done that in the state of Ohio. There's no place to look to that has that sort of gain. I would love to be able to do that. Instead, what we're going to talk about are SMART goals that are anchored in things that we have observed other systems be able to do, that are ambitious and will help us move forward and produce more positive gains for our students over time. So again, back to the notion of SMART goals. The student outcomes focused governance model is anchored to SMART goals. The idea is that the goals would be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So, when we talk about what we're doing in terms of moving forward, again, we want to continue our growth moving forward. We want to accelerate that. We want to keep our focus on growth and achievement. We really want to be focused on improving student outcomes, not just as a board, but as a system and as a community. This is our path forward. To do so, we need to establish post-pandemic baselines. We need to look at what is the rate of change and what sort of change can actually occur, and we'll look at the data that supports it. We also want to establish evidence-based growth trajectories. How much gain is realistic? Specific and, again, measurable and achievable goals. Setting goals that are not achievable doesn't help the system. It actually sets the system up to have this sort of revolving door of strategies instead of letting people learn these strategies deeply and begin to incorporate them and build momentum over time. We're going to introduce a mathematics goal. I think Principal Smith articulated it very well, the importance of mathematics for high school graduation and really post-secondary readiness. And I thank you. She gave all the logic you need for why we need a math goal. And then finally, we're going to talk about the targets for the next 5 years, the specific targets for the next 5 years that are time-bound. So in terms of method, what do we do? How do we look at this? How do we figure out what would be measurable, what could be achievable? Well, we ended up looking at data that went all the way back to the 2016-2017 school year because we wanted to look at, well, what sort of gains from year to year in terms of achievement happened before the pandemic and what sort of gains happened after the pandemic, and looking at that to see what we could see in terms of reasonable expectations. Who did we include in the comparison? Well, certainly we wanted to include all the Ohio 8, the largest city systems in the state. Well, the smallest of those is Youngstown, and it has 4,600 students, and I would suggest that Youngstown's quite a bit different than us in many regards because it's so, but we use that as a base because that is, again, one of the Ohio 8, it's one of the city systems that we're often compared to. They do have student populations very similar to us, but it's a much smaller system. We included every system that was larger than Youngstown. That's 65 systems in total that were included in this comparison. That would include most of the systems that are in Franklin County. So most of our suburban counterparts in Franklin County are in that mix. When you look at the star performance of those, it's a very diverse group. They have stars that go anywhere from 2 to 5. Though if anything, it's a little biased to higher performing systems. Over half of these systems are 4- and 5-star systems. So we didn't limit ourselves in any way in terms of comparison. So when we talk about limiting factors, we didn't limit based on poverty. We didn't limit based on the number of English language learners. We didn't limit on any student attributes in this regard. We were just looking at what sort of gains have been observed and what is possible. And to that end, we asked some questions. What was the average gain in test scores over time on a yearly basis for the state, Columbus, the largest 65 systems around the state, and the largest city systems around the state? And that, again, on any given year, what was the average gain? Then we looked and said, well, this is a process of continuous improvement. We're talking about sustained gains over time. Well, how often do these gains happen consecutively? Because what we're talking about now, again, is incrementally improving every year. How often does any gain occur consecutively? How large are the gains that occur consecutively over time? And those are the questions that we used to frame as we went through. So we'll start with reading proficiency. Each of these goal areas is laid out exactly the same way. We're going to start with a line graph, and then we'll walk through the analysis and then end with a proposed goal and target language. Starting with reading proficiency over time. Again, you'll see this chart goes from 2016-2017 to 2022-2023. It looks at third grade reading proficiency for each of these groups over time. The red line at the bottom represents Columbus City Schools and our performance. It overlaps almost identically with the dotted black line, which represents the city systems around the state, the Ohio 8. The dotted orange line, which is a little further up, is the state as a whole. And the green line represents the average for the 65 largest systems around the state. What I would like you to observe from this is how how these lines run in parallel. They start in very different places, but the ups and downs are very consistent across this. And there is, and as we get to this, again, moving forward on this, again, the state and each of these comparison groups have failed to return to pre-pandemic levels of achievement. So across the board, no one's got there yet. There's a lot of room to improve. So while our performance is below that of the state and the 65 largest districts around the state, only about 6 out of 10 kids around the state are reading at grade level at the end of 3rd grade. There's plenty of room to improve. No one is capped out. There's no limit for growth at the top here. There's plenty of room up here for everyone to grow. So, and when you look at this, so in any given year, how much growth was on average observed? Our average year-to-year gain in proficiency was about 1.4 points. The average gain for the state during this window was about 1.8. The average gain for large districts was about 1.3, very similar to us. Our prior reading goal targets were set at 2.4 points of gain per year. And that's when we were anchored to a 43% starting point and a 55% ending point. And then the bottom dropped out with the pandemic, and then suddenly it became going from 23% to 55%. And that was not even close to realistic. So again, how often do these gains occur? And we'll walk through this a little bit. As the size of the gain increases, the number or proportion of times that happens decreases. So how often does any gain occur? About 70% of the time, folks will make some sort of gain, no matter how minuscule it could be. By the time we get out to gains of around 2.4 points of gain, less than 50% of the systems make that in any given year, let alone consecutively. So as the size of the gain increases, the likelihood that any system achieve that in 1 year goes down significantly. So again, just reiterating that non-zero gains, any gain at all, 7 out of 10 times. Typical gains, 1.3% like we saw, those happen about 62% of the time. Gains of 2% or more, 54%. So we're getting close to half the time. Gains of 2.4% or more, less than 50% of the time did those occur. And even when we exclude the pandemic year, when we take that out, consistent consecutive gains in the largest 65 systems were very unusual. They just didn't happen that often. And to put a fine point on that, there are only 6 systems around the state that demonstrated consecutive years of gain of any size. There is only 1 system in the state that managed to have a gain of greater than 2 points consecutively year over year. Out of those 65 largest systems around the state, there's only 1 that was able to put together gains of 2 points or more consecutively year over year through that window. Using that data, then we framed what we thought could be a SMART goal. The language changed a little bit from our prior reading goal because the prior reading goal had a little clause in there for the impact of the pandemic, so this is actually a little simpler. The percentage of 3rd grade students proficient in reading on the Ohio State test will increase from 34.5% in school year 22-23 to 44.5% in June of 28. What you see is an expected gain of 2 percentage points per year. It's a continuous and steady sort of climb of growth here. It will close a gap with the state. In fact, again, gains of this magnitude happen about 50% of the time in large systems, and only 1 of the large systems around the state has been able to do this consecutively over time. It's an ambitious goal and one that requires substantial work to be able to accomplish.
Only 1 system has achieved a 2% consistent gain per year, which is what we are striving to achieve by June of 2028. We know that reading proficiency is a foundational skill that affects all aspects of our students' life. Not only does reading proficiency promote lifelong learning, it also enhances communication skills, academic success, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. In our district, we have placed an emphasis on early literacy and early childhood education because it is foundational to all key elements of learning and comprehension. It would be a disservice to our students if we did not equip them with the core elements of literacy needed to navigate their educational journeys and further their future goals. Our students consistently present with greater needs when they start kindergarten in our district. Year over year, 15% of our kindergarten students are performing at grade level in English language arts at the middle point of their kindergarten year. Repeat, that's 15% of our students are on track at the middle of kindergarten. So when they're coming to us not really ready with the skills that they need to succeed as early as kindergarten. By the end of third grade last year, that cohort, the students who started in kindergarten, by the time they got to third grade, had more than double the rate of students who were performing at grade level. So we are seeing growth and we are seeing movement over time, but it certainly takes time. The starting point when our students enter kindergarten and the growth that needs to happen from where they start to by the time that they take the third grade OST, certainly we need that time, we need a longer runway. We certainly want to continue to be advocates for expanding early childhood services so that our students can start school earlier. They need to start in pre-K, right? And so as a district, as administration and team, we will continue to advocate for expanding early childhood programming, and certainly this is one of the investments from issue 11. We are expanding pre-K at 6 sites in the district, which brings the total number of pre-K classrooms to 127. And again, we will continue to be advocates in the district, at the state level, for universal pre-K. So we can have a longer on-ramp, more time in class, more instructional days to help prepare our students for the rigorous demands of the third grade OST. In addition, as a district, we have invested in professional development for all elementary teachers aligned to the science of reading. Using ESSER funds, our teachers are receiving LETTERS training, which stands for Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling, to support their implementation of evidence-based literacy instructional practices in each classroom. We will continue to offer summer programming for our elementary students that will address their needs, particularly in the area of literacy. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Brown so he can transition to our next goal, which is math proficiency.
So the new proposed goal is strengthening mathematics proficiency, and specifically in 7th grade. Again, following the pattern that we've seen before, we're starting with the line chart. Again, the red line represents Columbus City Schools. The dotted black line represents the Ohio 8, the 8 largest city systems around the state. The orange line represents the state of Ohio, and the green line represents the average of the 65 largest systems around the state. Again, I'd like to point out that these lines run fairly parallel. There's a little bit of a gap for us at the bottom. We know that we need to do work around math, but the ups and downs are sort of consistent in terms of pattern here. And again, there's a lot of room for improvement at the top. To put a fine point on that, again, the state and any of the comparison groups I've described have not returned to pre-pandemic levels of achievement. There's still a gap there. And in fact, last year, less than half the students in 7th grade across the state were performing at grade level in mathematics. So this is a broad challenge. Again, it's one that we've seen on NAEP and one that we see on the OST. And there, again, plenty of room for improvement across all these systems. So none are hitting a ceiling effect in this. So again, how much gain do different systems see over this window of time? Our average gain in this window is 1.2 points per year. The average gain for the state was 1.1. The average gain for large districts was 1.8. That's 65 larger systems did about 1.8 points of gain per year. And the average gain for the large cities, the Ohio 8, was about 1.4. Even when we take out the pandemic year, only 12% of these systems, this 12% of the 65, make consecutive gains year after year across this window. So consecutive gains are fairly rare. Large systems only make gains about 66% of the time of any size. And then as you ratchet it up, you'll see that the proportion of systems making that gain goes down. And by the time we get to 1.5 points, it's only 53% of the systems making it. At 1.75 percentage points, it's 51% of the systems. Consistent gains of 1.5 percentage points or larger were very rare. They only happen in 5 systems across the state of Ohio, 5 of those largest 65. So the language proposed for the 7th grade mathematics goal looks very similar to the 3rd grade in terms of the base language. The percentage of 7th grade students proficient in mathematics on the Ohio State test will increase from 14.7% in the 22-23 school year to 23.45% in June of 2028. This is an average expected gain of 1.75 percentage points per year. It's, again, a commitment to continuous and steady growth. Again, gains of this magnitude only happen about half the time. And again, only 5 of the systems around the state have accomplished this level of gain or a comparable level of gain consistently over time. It's an ambitious goal that is a commitment, again, to continuous improvement for our students. And again, better preparation for students as they go into high school for Algebra 1. Dr. Chapman?
It is important to stress the process of continuous and steady growth when reviewing this data. At first glance, this goal may not appear to be lofty. However, after further examining the gains of this magnitude that only occur about half the time, it puts into perspective how ambitious and necessary this math proficiency goal is for our students. Math proficiency is an essential skill regardless of the career, trade, or life journey a student embarks upon. Focusing on math helps to prepare our students for high school and beyond. Because of this, we'll continue to focus and prioritize support in math. In today's landscape of technological advancement that has infused itself into all aspects of our lives, math has everyday implications for our students. From students developing cognitive skills to decision-making, problem-solving, and analysis, proficiency in math is the gatekeeper for all pursuits, as echoed by our principal, Pam Smith, earlier. Because of this, it is vital to view math proficiency through the lens of equity. We want to prepare our students to take advantage of the vast opportunities available here in the areas of STEM. As we strive to prepare our students for their futures, this goal prepares them for a greater level of success. The challenges we face in math certainly is a national concern. Thanks to the passage of Issue 11, we can now face this challenge by allocating resources for math professional development and providing more investments in the area of math, including district math teams working on streamlining curriculum. We understand that change takes time and our students cannot wait. With this in mind, we are working collaboratively, not only locally, but also nationally with our association partners such as the Aspen Institute, the Ohio Department of Education Math Task Force, and the Council of Great City Schools to accelerate our efforts and pool our talent and resources in retaining and recruiting math instructors and prioritizing math proficiency.
So finally, moving on to closing opportunity gaps, which is anchored on our graduation rate. Again, starting with our chart, again, the red line is Columbus City Schools. The black dotted line represents the Ohio 8, the largest city systems. The orange dotted line represents the state as a whole, and the green line at the top represents the largest 65 systems across the state. This is the first chart that we've looked at where the lines don't really run parallel. There's a little bit of differentiation here, and particularly the state has gone upward through this window of time, while the other systems went up and then came down. So the state, has trended upward about 1.4% post-pandemic. The large systems have been flat or trended downward over that same window. State performance was 87.3 for the class of 22, and looking across the board, again, average gains here for us across this window were 0.3 percentage points per year. The average gain here for the state by year was about 0.64 points per year. The average gain for large districts was about 0.24 points per year. And the average gain for the large cities was about 0.67 points per year. Our prior goal expected 1.28 points of gain per year, and no one is doing that. No one's making that sort of gain. No one's making gains greater than 1% on a regular basis. So again, even when we exclude the pandemic year, there's only one of the 65 systems mentioned here that made consistent gains across time here. And I'm talking about gains of greater than 0. not necessarily large gains, but gains greater than 0. Large systems only make gains about 55% of the time. Gains of half a percentage point were less than 50%, about 42% of the time. Gains of 3/4 of a percentage point only happen a third of the time. Gains of 1 percentage point or more occur less than a third of the time in any one given year. No system made year-over-year gains consecutively of more than a half a percentage point over this window of time. And these are the 65 largest systems in the state. 57% of these are 4- and 5-star systems, and they are not making gains greater than a half a percentage point. As a matter of fact, the system that made that gain was an Ohio 8 member. The goal language reflects what it was before, or very similar. The percentage of 4-year graduation cohort students who complete state and district graduation requirements will increase from 78.2 in August of 2023 to 83.2 in August of 2028. This is an average expected gain of 1 percentage point per year. Again, it's continuous and steady growth. None of the 65 largest systems in the state made this sort of gain. It also exceeds the typical growth of the state, so this will close the gap with the state over time if we do this. And in fact, the gains of this magnitude happen less than a third of the time. So it's, again, a very ambitious set of goals. It's a commitment to continuous improvement, and will help close the gap between where we are and the state as a whole.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Again, I will stress here how slow, steady, and continuous growth will prepare our students for graduation excellence as portrait-ready grads. As educational leaders, it is our responsibility to provide warm and welcoming learning environments that champion student success and support families. With the support of the Columbus community and passage of Issue 11, we'll be making investments in high school redesign and creating pathways that engage students and lead students to graduating at higher levels. With your support, we are focused on the needs of the whole child. We have invested in curricular resources, culture and climate supports, social-emotional supports, and restorative practices. Our ESSER dollars have also allowed us to provide additional school counselors and social workers. Thanks to our community investment, we'll be able to continue to provide high levels of social-emotional support for students across the district. Again, thank you for allowing us to provide context around our board goals and for being focused on literacy, math, and graduation. Thank you for maintaining your commitment as a board for our evidence-based practices. Over the next 5 years, the district will continue to focus on these goals as outlined here. In addition, we know that we need to prioritize improved management of the portfolio of both academic offerings and our facility footprint, and improved resource allocation and transparency to ensure we are the best stewards of public funds. While tonight we talked about our academic goals, there are many non-academic needs, such as mental health supports, commitment to whole child counselors and social workers that require investments and attention. We are working with our partners at Education Resource Strategies to explore where there are opportunities to close gaps and ensure resources are aligned with these goals. In doing so, we'll be allocating resources differently as a district and as a system. This will include aligning resources equitably according to measures of student need and making decisions regarding our portfolio of schools. We'll continue to make investments in professional development to reach our math and reading proficiency goals, along with increased oversight of our portfolio management to align with academic and facility improvements. We share the sense of urgency for more robust programming and pathways that should be offered to all of our students. We know that our students require more support, not less. Knowing this, we are tasked with making meaningful decisions that support student achievement. Investments allow us to address the needs of our students. Their outcomes will not change for the better until adult behavior changes, and that includes systemic, system-wide changes in how we allocate our resources differently. We are committed to making the changes needed to improve the lives of students and families of Columbus City Schools. In a couple of weeks, we'll come back to discuss the superintendent's interim goals and how they will support and communicate our progress toward the board goals. Again, we are thankful for this opportunity to share our recommendations, updates, and expectations. And at this time, we will certainly welcome and invite any questions that you may have regarding these recommendations.
Other questions from board members? From Rickle.
Thank you, Madam President. Can you all hear me? Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much. Just a quick question about inclusion of certain types of data that might have some sort of impact on why we see that fluctuation. SPED percentage of students, for example, ELL. Do we, just in observation, see any kind of impact of those populations of students on our learning gap and our growth, our progress over time?
When we're looking at overall achievement and comparing it to other districts, is that your question, Board Member Cole?
Even that, yes.
Absolutely. And so I would argue, if we could go back to the beginning of the presentation, maybe our demographic slide, I would argue that there's no other district that's doing the work that we are doing in Columbus City Schools.
With those particular populations of students?
With those particular populations of students, being that we are the largest district in the state, we serve larger populations of students who need more resources and need more services. And so therein lies really, an opportunity for us to really make sure that we're providing them with the supports that they need.
I thank you. I just think that is really important information for Joe and Jane Public, for our community to know in advance and understand, so that when we are making this conversation around comparison of fruit, we really understand the nuances. We really understand those difficulties of differences in population that impact teaching and instruction, learning in a classroom environment, in a building for building basis. We have to understand that fundamentally in advance before we start looking at broader schools and then making this broader comparison. We got to talk our nuances. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Board Member Cole. I appreciate that question. And I just want to reiterate that we appreciate the diversity of our district.
Absolutely.
We welcome all of our students. We also recognize that it takes more time, and that's why we said we want to have a longer runway to be able to provide our students with the supports and the interventions that they need, no matter where they are coming to us from, what previous district they were enrolled in. So we would like to welcome our students sooner, earlier. That's why we're advocating for early childhood programming. In addition, just thinking about, Dr. Brown mentioned this earlier tonight when we talked about our ESL students. Typically, the research says that it takes 5 to 7 years to gain a solid footing in the academic language. Well, we're measuring progress year over year, right? And so when we get to the 3rd grade OST, it doesn't really matter at which point you transition to the country or transition to our school district. You're still being assessed, the same assessment. And so we know that it takes more time, but I just want to reiterate that we welcome all of our students. We welcome the opportunity to serve them, to teach them, and to prepare them for the rigorous assessments. And, we consider it a privilege.
Thank you. So do I.
Other questions? Dr. Pierce.
So my questions relate to, if we could spend a little bit more time explaining how we intend to close the gap with state performance. So Dr. Brown, for slide 15, you gave that statement. I think it's important, again, for the public to understand how we have been very reflective in setting these new targets that they are framed within SMART goals and that they will get us to that point where we will see steady growth, but that growth will significantly move us to closing those gaps in relation to the state performance and where we are with that. So if you could explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, so in each case, the goals were set in such a way is that they were ambitious, but someone had achieved them at least part of the time. So they were attainable. In each case, the goals are set in such a way that they exceed the typical growth that's been observed by the state. In each case, the goals are set in a way that they exceed the typical growth of the Ohio 8 and the typical growth of the 65 largest systems in the state. So as we move forward through these goals and we make this continuous improvement, and we'll be happy if we exceed them in some places, that's for darn sure. But they will close the gap with every one of those comparison groups over time.
And then my final question, Dr. Chapman, we have gone through this data and looked at it from a very quantitative perspective. You shared how these new targets will prepare our students for success from your perspective as our new leader. How will the changing or these adjustments impact the morale of our educators as well as our students?
Thank you, Dr. Pierce, for that question. I assume that being able to communicate and clearly articulate and align the system to SMART goals that are realistic and attainable will empower our staff, right? Every one of our educators and administrators, they come to work every day knowing they know the literacy address of every one of their students. They know the math address of every one of their students, meaning they know where they are performing in literacy and they know where they are performing in math. They know how far their students need to go to reach the targets, and those are the targets that are set by the state. So, right, we know that we are dealing with much more rigorous standards for each grade level, because when the state shifted from the previous standards to the current standard, they shifted away from the target being graduation to the target being college and career readiness. And so that makes the standards much more rigorous. The threshold, the bar of what you have to demonstrate and mastery at each grade level is much more rigorous. And so I certainly believe that this will give it will send a signal as board members, administrators. Right now, what we're doing, and we're sending a signal to the rest of the organization, really letting them know that this is what, where we're focusing, and making sure that we're aligning the work to SMART goals that are realistic and attainable.
Thank you.
Other questions? I actually had 4, but 3 of them were actually asked by my colleagues. So let me just do the last one here that I had. So when we're talking about increasing in what we have perceived as attainable and moving those benchmarks up every year, it takes resources to do it. You mentioned some. Let's just use, when you were talking about reading, you mentioned some when you were speaking. We have made more investments or need to make more investments in curriculum, in like science of reading, letters, in early literacy, in summer programming, and experiences. So these were some of the resources that you mentioned. Focusing on pre-K, because you highlighted the need of early literacy, we know that investment that our community just made, as you mentioned, brought us 6 new classrooms. That's 6 teachers, 12 aides. It was $1.2 million.
Yes.
If we could do universal pre-K, what sort of investments would we need? And I know you don't have a number, and that's not really what I'm asking. And maybe Treasurer Vanover can jump in here, but that's just for the reading. We have a lot of other goals and a lot of other needs and a lot of other resources. So can you talk a little bit about that in terms of, as we talk to our community about investment, we talk about issue 11, we talk about, what we just asked and our voters gave us, and what we need.
Yes, thank you, President Adair, for that question. When what we have learned post-pandemic is what it really takes and what it costs to educate the whole child, right? And so beyond the classroom, beyond the allocation for a classroom teacher, we're looking at what are the mental health supports that it takes to educate a child. We know that providing a social worker or a guidance counselor, having those resources available one day a week doesn't work. It doesn't work for our community. It doesn't work for our students. It doesn't work for our staff. It doesn't meet the needs of the whole child. And so what we've learned is that these are mental health supports that need to be available to all of our students every day of the week. So we need full-time staff members available to provide those needs to our students at every school. You talked about the need for early childhood. We could spend hours talking about the research on the impact of early childhood education. We could talk about the brain research and how the brain is developed and almost fully developed by the age of 5, which means the intervention needs to be sooner, not later. We need to intervene and provide our students with access to academic literacy, to reading and math, intervention and supports prior to turning 5. And so we need to change the culture in our community, change the narrative, change the conversation about the importance of early childhood education. That's not a conversation that we want to have in a vacuum. That's a conversation we need to have as a community. That's a conversation that we need to have with our legislators at the Ohio Department of Education, because currently we're not fully funded to provide pre-K, and that's why that investment for just 6 classrooms is a huge and heavy lift for us as a district and for our community. And so we need to be thinking about how do we provide more supports, more instructional time to our students before they turn 5. What if, school starts at age 4, and that was the culture that we worked to create. That is a practice that has been done in other districts across the country, and so that is something that we will certainly be looking at and working with our colleagues across the state and in our community to begin having conversations about, because we recognize the need, we recognize the urgency, and we need a longer on-ramp with our students. When we think about some of the other investments that we've made with the passage of issue 11, again, continuing to provide summer enrichment experiences and summer programming to our elementary students. When we know that our students are off track, we want to continue to keep them engaged over the summer. And so we need to allocate resources to do that. Well, it's expensive, right? It's not free. It costs money to pay the teachers, to pay the staff, to pay for transportation. And so these are investments that are mission critical and much needed to support our students and to support the programming and to help turn around close the gap and to help accelerate learning. In addition, one of the things that we talked about, I talked about looking at our how we allocate resources. When we know that our students and our schools need, and we need to allocate more resources to the classroom, we have to look globally at our footprint across the district and look at our portfolio of schools. We're working with ERS, and they're going to be coming back to us in just a couple of weeks before, I believe, December 19th. And they'll be sharing some data with us, so it'll be a great time for us to look at the information, the research that they have done on how we're allocating our resources. We've already heard from them in their first analysis, just initial glance, that as a district, we're spending more money on operations and instruction. That's not okay. We have set clear board goals that we are focusing on literacy, math, and matriculation. Well, our resources need to be aligned to those goals. And so there's much more work to be done, and we're committed to making those difficult conversations, leaning in to making those shifts and changes needed to accelerate student outcomes. And that will require some system-wide changes.
Brown?
Thank you. Just have one question, and it's, I think, more philosophical than it is number-based. And in asking, I'm probably just showing my age. But in the 70s and 80s, when I was in high school and served as a board member throughout the 80s, the thinking, I believe, was that kindergarten can still be half-day. Oh my God. And that kindergarten was primarily for the purpose of kids socializing, and that it wasn't rigorous academically. Now we are talking about pre-K being academically rigorous, and kindergarten being, all academic. How does the education world explain that?
So thank you, Board Member Brown, for asking that question. Certainly when we think about these standards, we think about what's needed and what our students need to master in third grade, because that's where the formal, district-wide assessment begins in third grade. And so when we see that our students are starting off in kindergarten with only 15% of them being on track for the kindergarten standards, that is a red flag for us. Now, when we look at our students who attend school pre-K in Columbus City Schools, I will add that majority of our programs, our pre-K classrooms, are highly rated with a 4 or 5-star rating by the state. So the students who attend pre-K in Columbus City Schools start off much stronger in kindergarten. So we've already proven that given the time, opportunity, and access to our students in pre-K, that they'll have a much stronger start in kindergarten, and they will be on track with their peers in terms of progressing towards the standards in kindergarten. Now, I'm all for early childhood education, but I'm also thinking about the whole needs of the whole child. We want the instruction to be developmentally appropriate. In no way, shape, or form would we suggest, advocate, or intend to push third grade standards onto pre-K students, kindergarten, first, and second grade. The standards are there's standards and clear outcomes that each student or grade should master that's developmentally appropriate and is taught in ways that are developmentally appropriate. And I would argue that we have the best teachers that are certainly figuring out how to balance those standards as well as developmentally appropriate instruction to meet the needs of our earliest or our youngest learners in pre-K, and they're doing a phenomenal job of doing that across the district. I hope that answers your question. And there are some districts in our county that still have half-day kindergarten. They do not have a full-day program. So this is a shift. And this is certainly a conversation that I think we could, lean in and have with a broader audience.
Thank you.
Board Member Reyes.
Thank you for the presentation. Dr. Chapman, I know we had a couple conversations as you were putting this together. You and I and Mr. Brown talked about, if our children can read, other subjects also improve. So math, comprehension, things like that. And as I look at some of the graphical representations that were in this PowerPoint, we see peaks where we've seen some improvement. And as you were responding to the previous questions, I wonder if some of these peaks were when we were doing some of those strategies, right? We talked about we had a community strategy where Columbus City Schools stepped up and said, we will help those who have daycare centers and, take care of the children at home, maybe grandma or an auntie take care of that. I feel like that may have been one of the peaks. We had another peak when we had an all hands on deck. We were meeting in the library I'm assuming. And we had a readers program, very similar to what we just saw our kids from Briggs talk about, the reader program. So I feel like there's more to just Columbus City Schools. Is how do we engage our community? There are a lot of Head Start programs throughout the nation, right? It would be great if we had enough funding to do Head Start through 12. I mean, if we're really investing in our future and how our children can succeed. I mean, I would assume, we could see large gains if we're starting at 0 to 4, and then getting about 4 at pre-K, and then 5 to 6 to kindergarten. And then maybe this is not a response today, but will we discuss at some point a strategy on how the community, how we can provide resources or tools for our community to help us in this effort?
Absolutely. Board Member Reyes, thank you for that question and thank you for that push. Tonight we are, resetting the metrics for the goals, but know that as a team, once we reset these goals, then we'll reset the interim guardrails, and then we will be aligning our strategies to these goals. If you recall, this is a perfect opportunity for us to make sure that the strategies that we anchor this work in are clearly aligned to the board goals. In the previous cycle, when we started this process, we did the strategies and then we did the goals, but now we're ahead of this. We're exactly where we need to be, where we can set the goals and then align the strategies. And I want to say that, on behalf of all the educators in the district, we do not in any way, shape, or form intend to do this work alone. We cannot, right? Our students, our scholars, they are counting on all of us as a community to lean in and support them. We're thinking about just a day in the life of a student. A student comes to school, elementary school students, they start at 9, they leave at 3:30. What we're thinking about, how we connect the dots with our after-school program providers. How do we connect the dots to ensure extended learning at home and when they're at home in the evening? We're thinking about how we connect the dots with our faith-based community if students are spending time in other organizations throughout the community, because we share, right? We all, as a community, want our students to be literate. We want our students to reach and exceed the math goals. We want our students to exceed the graduation goal. And the only way that we will do that is if it's all hands on deck and we have the support of our entire community in helping us do that. And we think that there are some really, really unique opportunities for us to engage in with our community partners to begin talking about how that work is aligned. As a system, when we think about all of the partners that we currently work with, this will be a non-negotiable. You want to work with students in Columbus City Schools? Welcome. We look forward to partnering with you. Your work will and must be aligned to our board goals. That's a non-negotiable. It's a non-starter. And so there will have to be a reset with partners that we're currently working with. There will be conversations with new partners that want to partner with us. And while the partners may have good intentions about something that they want to work on, if it's not in alignment with our board goals, we'll have to reconsider how we partner. And I think that in saying that, I really want to commend our board for staying focused on these goals. Because when our board is focused on these goals, it provides focus and clarity for the entire organization. Everyone should be able to say, what are we focused on? These are our 3 goals, right? And so that aligns the entire system, whether that's internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. Everyone that's touching, working with, connecting with, or serving students and families connected to Columbus City Schools will know that we have these 3 concrete goals and everything will be aligned to it. So again, I appreciate the board's effort and commitment to staying focused on this work, which helps us stay focused as an organization.
And I appreciate that response, Dr. Chapman, is exactly what I wanted the community to hear, because we have seen short highlights of what happens when everybody jumps on board in one cause. I mean, you know, the two examples that I stated, but what happened at that time was we highlighted it for 4 or 5 months, hit the goal, and as seen by the graphs that you showed, because, you know, even in the reading proficiency, you see us up, and then we see us down, then you see us up again, and then we went way down in the pandemic. Then you see us up. So I feel like we have these little highlights, and then we have the community comes to us and says, well, what can I do? And having specific curriculum that they can use, specific tools that they can use, having a laser focus saying that these are the things that we're highlighting is very important. And I believe reading is something that the entire community can help us on. So I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
That sounds like a community-wide literacy plan.
Yes.
How do we work together as a community to support our literacy goals?
Yes.
Challenge accepted.
Starting from Head Start.
Yes.
Board Member Cole.
Just a quick add to that, I want to definitely make sure, and I'm certain because some of those conversations are being had now, but I definitely at least want to state publicly that it's important that we protect our student data in the process, that we hold our partners accountable to showing what the return on this investment in them as a resource actually is, but we're able to shape narrative around the accomplishment in a way that ultimately protects our students. So they have the data that they need, the resource, the information from us that they need to be able to tabulate their success and then come to us at our board meeting, in front of us at our board meeting, and talk to us about what exactly they have accomplished.
Thank you, Board Member Cole.
Are there any last questions? Actually, Board Member Beckerly is watching, and she sent a question. So I wanted to, should we think about the goals that we've laid out, these benchmarks, as floors or ceilings?
Floors.
Floors. These are goals that we are certainly working to achieve, right? Because we certainly want to close the gaps. But the goal would be to exceed these goals for all of our students, our schools. Our schools are aligning their school improvement plans to these goals. Some of our schools have already exceeded these goals. So their progress and growth we're not going to hold them back, right? They're going to continue to make steady progress and achievement. So this is really, I believe, a starting point for us to think about how we're measuring growth. Remember, we're focusing on growth for all over time, so that we can begin to close those gaps.
Thank you. Okay, with that, that will close the discussion. So we'll have a roll call.
President Adair?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Vice President Vera?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So we have now adopted the amended goals and targets. And so that is what will be implemented. That is also now what our superintendent will be evaluated on in her evaluation. I wanted to take a second and talk about the urgency of the work. The board, the administration feels a huge sense of urgency to ensure that our students are achieving and that we are continuing to show this community that we can take the district forward together. Over the past 4 years, a lot of work has been done, including the community setting the North Star of the Portrait of a Graduate. From there, the board set these goals and guardrails and worked on a philosophy about how to govern the district, putting students center. And this, today, is a perfect example of what that looks like and how it cascades down through an organization all the way down to the students that we saw today. But we know that the work ahead is hard. And this past year, the board and the administration have gone on a journey to really look into our system, understand who we are, understand our history, to understand what next steps we need to do and where we need the community's help. The beginning of this year, we started a discussion around root cause, if you all remember that, because we had a transportation problem. And through those discussions, we realized that we needed to take deeper dives to understand more about our district. And we needed to do it in a way that allowed for growth mindset and continuing learning. And so this board and the administration went through a series of retreats this summer, with our last retreat to talk in a few weeks to close out before figuring out how it is we are going to do our work going forward. So I just wanted to talk about those retreats for a moment so that the community understood the type of work, the type of things we're considering as we are really trying to make systemic change and address issues that cause barriers to meeting goals that we just talked about. In our first retreat, we talked and decided as a governing team what it meant to have a radical transformation of our district. What did that mean for the student experience? What did that mean for buildings? What did that mean? We took a deep dive to understand our facility master plan, the history of our buildings, and the whys behind that. In our second retreat, we looked and understood more about core instruction. We understood more about our student populations that Board Member Cole pointed out were causing that huge gap in between where you saw in those charts where Columbus City Schools is and where other districts are. We took deeper dives to understand the gaps and opportunities facing students of certain demographics, including students with disabilities, our English language learners, and our early education program. In our third and fourth retreats, we took a deep dive into equitable resourcing. We had to understand where we were spending our money and where we needed to spend our money in order to see the improvements that we wanted. And as you heard Dr. Chapman say, we learned that we were spending more money in operations than we were in our academic programming, and that's not okay. We also dug deep into the impact of poverty in our district, in our students and families, and the performance, and what type of barriers were put in front of them that would not allow us to achieve this goal, and discuss what would we need to do as a system to really address this. In our last retreat, we are going to be tackling a huge issue around transportation and enrollment, and really the outcomes of policy decisions that have been made since the 1970s around desegregation, and in the late 80s and 90s around win-win. We have to understand where we have come from to understand where we need to go to really change the system, because that's the only way that we will make the sustainable change for our students. We are committed to that. That is our governance model. We are student outcome focused. We are ready to get to work. We are excited for that. And our work will begin in 2024. We will seat a consolidation committee during that time. We will seat new committees with new focus. We will ensure transparency, accountability, and urgency. There is a lot of work to do, and we must all do it together. Thank you for that, and we look forward to having that retreat on the 12th of December and really being able to outline the new plans as we have new board members coming in, board members going out, and establishing a new board year in January. I do want to thank all of the administrative team who participated in those retreats. As Dr. Kleiner likes to remind us every time that we are together in those meetings, it is new, it is different, because we are all doing it together, and that has never happened before. Board and full cabinet and our subject matter experts, because that's the commitment we have to really improve our student outcomes. So I want to thank you for that. We're going to move down into our agenda, and We do not have a superintendent report. She talked a lot, but I want to make sure you have nothing else to say, Madam Superintendent.
No, no, thank you. I think I've shared enough for tonight. And again, we'll be back soon to talk about our interim goals that are now aligned to the board goals. And we will also, we've also invited ERS to join us at our December 16th board meeting, I think. Is it that? December 12th? Okay. One of our next upcoming board meetings to talk about resource allocation and provide an update in terms of where we are at this point. So more to come very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to, over to our internal auditor's office. Hello, Auditor O'Connor.
Good evening, President Adair. No report tonight.
Thank you. And now over to our treasurer's office, Treasurer Vanover.
I'll echo Internal Auditor O'Connor's comment. I have nothing to add. No report.
Thank you. All right, down to our consent agenda. This evening, our consent agenda consists of items 9.1 to 24.8. Are there any items a board member would like to remove for separate consideration? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda with no changes.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Are there any items a board member would like to discuss? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Vice President Vera?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We will now go into executive session. Vice President Vera, you have the motion.
I move that the Board of Education recess into executive session per Section 121.22 G1 Ohio Revised Code to consider the appointment, employment, or compensation of public employees and per Section 121.22.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Vice President Vera?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We will now adjourn into executive session. That will conclude the televised portion of our meeting. I really hope the Bruins pulled out a win. We'll have to figure out what the score was of the game. Thank you all for joining us here on the west side. Thank you for all who were in attendance. Safe travels home.